Big picture, I see, as I had already touched on, is consolidation for sure. There's no doubt in my mind that we're seeing a lot of activity in this space, and I think it's great for the space. I think it's consolidation can really help a surgeon maximize the value of their practice, okay, and be a part of something bigger than just their own private practice. And it's not for everyone, but certainly I think for a lot of surgeons that have worked hard and they have an opportunity to transition that practice and ultimately get a nice initial payout on an acquisition, but then also maintain equity so that they can have a larger payout in the future. So I think consolidation is great for it's kind of the natural progression of a lot of markets.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Technology of Beauty, where I have the opportunity to interview the movers and shakers of the beauty business. And today is no exception. Today, my friend Jim Haefner just came up from Orange County, Irvine, right?
Coto de Caza.
Coto de Caza. Yep. He's come up here to beautiful Manhattan Beach, here to the home of our studios here, the Technology of Beauty Studios, and he's going to tell us all about Athenix. Welcome, Jim.
Welcome. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. I finally got you up here. Yeah, it's great.
Well, it is an honor, as I texted you back.
Well,
much
it's
appreciated.
My honor. Let's start with this. Where did you grow up?
Grew up in the suburbs of Detroit. Great place.
Yeah. The Motor City.
That's right. Great place to be from.
Okay. And where'd you go to school?
I did my undergrad at Eastern Michigan University, and then I did my master's at USC.
Ah, so you're a Trojan. You got your master's. And what's your master's in?
I just did general management.
So business.
My MBA.
Yeah, your MBA. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know you were a Trojan either. So then,
I thought you were going to say you didn't know I did my MBA.
No, I figured you did.
I figured I wasn't
CEO,
that smart.
That's going to come out in a second. But having said that, so you got your MBA, and where'd you go to work initially? Where'd you start?
Good question. So when I got done with college, when I got done with my undergrad, I really didn't know what I wanted to do.
Okay.
And I had a good marketing professor who steered me toward getting into sales. And he basically said, listen, if you don't know where you want to go, you can go anywhere in business once you start in that area, because everyone needs to know how to sell in business. So that's what he steered me to. So I went out and had some other good advice that the best place to cut your teeth is in business equipment. So I started selling photocopiers and photocopiers and fax machines. Okay?
Fax machines.
Yeah,
sure.
Back in the day when you actually...
Was that in the 80s?
In the 80s, when you needed someone to sell a fax machine, you couldn't just pick one up at Staples for $99. So.
Or have it dropped off at your house.
That's right, exactly. So I did that for a couple of years, and that proved to be an outstanding training ground. Really helped, teach you all the basics of selling. Learned the fundamentals, took every course, read every book, and just tried to become the best that I could at selling. So that's where I got my start.
And then you went back to school?
I did. I didn't go back till later, though. Ultimately, which was also a good move, and I highly recommend that, because I think the sum total of my work experience up to that point, when I did my undergrad, I think I was bouncing at a bar and valeting cars at Fashion Island. So a lot of the things that you learn in business school weren't necessarily relevant. So after I had a number of years of experience, and particularly at executive levels, it was much more relevant, I think. So I went back later. It was probably, 10 years later or something like that, after I got out of school.
And when did you get into the beauty business? How did you get from photocopiers and fax machines?
Yeah, well, that happened pretty quick. That was a very short stint, so that was not my career lifetime.
I know that. But did you end up with one of the companies that I might be familiar with?
Yeah, actually, you know how I got into the business? A guy from our office, we had some very good salespeople, and one of the guys he was working for one of the device companies, and he was doing very well for himself. And so I basically thought to myself, okay, that's a great place where I'd like to be. And my parents actually were both veterinarians, so I had a little bit of a background in that area as well. So anyhow, this is going to date myself. this is before the internet days, right? So what I do, I went down to the library and I pulled out a reference book on who the top 20 at this time, top 20 medical companies were in the country. I picked up the phone, I went down, and I called every damn one of them.
Good for you.
And yeah, it was actually kind of funny because I got a hold of one guy. Actually, just to take a step back, I went and prepped and interview prep and such, and bought a couple books and had some suggested kind of approaches when you reach out and cold call someone, right?
Yeah.
So
sure.
I contacted one of the companies, which turned out to be the number 2 suture company in the industry at that time, right behind J&J as Ethicon. So I called him, and he says, I told him who I was and what I've done and what I'm interested in getting into and such, and he pauses for a moment. He says to me, he's this old guy. He says, "You're not reading that, are you?" I said, then I kind of broke the silence. I said, "No, I'm not. Of course, I'm not reading it." And anyway, he got an interview. He was the Western area vice president. Got an interview with his manager that was below him, and ultimately got into the business. And so that was with Davis and Geck. And that was in the early 90s, and then ultimately did very well with that. Got good exposure to a lot of different areas, including plastic surgery. But in 95 is when I really transitioned into essentially cosmetic surgery, pretty much only, or predominantly anyway, and that was with Coherent back in the day.
Okay.
So this is, as I remember, and this is going back a lot of years, as I remember, you were the old Sharplin guy.
Yeah, I was Sharplin.
Very early on, yep.
Yeah, I remember the Coherent guys.
Yeah, so
Really
we had introduced the UltraPulse CO2 laser,
Yep.
and it was it was a great system, great company to work for, and I ultimately had a career with them for about 10 years, and ended up leading the North and South America for vice president of sales for the aesthetic division. So that was really my transition into aesthetics, and I've been there ever since, in the market ever since. I think it's just such a great business.
So was it Coherent all the way to 2005, or didn't you do Lumenis? Or?
Well, so Coherent was acquired by ESC.
That's right, ESC.
Yeah, back in, I'm going to say around 2000 approximately, in that area. So yeah, those two companies formed together that then became the new company, and the company that is still today called Lumenis. So,
got it.
Yeah.
Okay, so what happened in 2000 and was that 5 then? Does that bring you to?
So that was actually in 1995, and then it took me up to about 2004, 2005, right around that time frame. Did a couple of stints, was with Allergan for a little bit, great company to work for, and then ultimately did a startup with a company called Liposonics.
Oh yeah, I remember Liposonics.
You remember that?
Wait a minute, let's go back. Allergan, what'd you do with Allergan?
So I was the vice president of commercial and franchise marketing. So my group essentially worked between facial, which was Bob Redigan's group at the time, the breast group, and back at the time they had the lap band team as well, and was involved in developing the original loyalty program, actually for plastic surgeons.
And Bob now is heading up MERS.
Yeah, great guy, great leader.
It's back to the old Yahtzee thing. And at that time, it was David Pyatt leading Allergan, right?
That's right.
Okay, so you're at Allergan for a while. Then you went to Liposonics.
Went to Liposonics, and opportunity to launch a brand new device, non-invasive fat destruction device, and good product. We launched it globally. I was EVP of marketing at the time, and within 6 months we were acquired by Medicis. So, and then basically transitioned that business over about the next year or so over to Medicis. So,
I forgot that Medicis did have Liposonics for a while.
Yeah, it was one of those things that plug into the wall that sometimes big pharma companies struggle with.
Yes, indeed. Okay, so you didn't switch over to Medicis at that time, did you?
I did. I transitioned into business for, 6 to 9 months, something like that.
Okay, so what's that get
Flew
us
back
to?
and forth. So that gets to you about 2009. So we had a nice exit at that time, and took about a year off and tried to decide what I wanted to do with my career.
When you grow up.
Yeah. No, it was a nice exit, not a I'm going to retire exit, but it was nice. But anyway, really took a long, hard look and tried to decide what I wanted to do. And one of the things I landed on was developing what is now Athenix Body Sculpting Institute. And the real impetus behind it was I just felt through all my years in healthcare, and not only on the professional side or on the business side, but as a consumer, that we could just do a much better job, okay? And in particular in aesthetic plastic surgery, because it is what I like to refer to and others retail medicine. Okay, right. I mean, it's true. It is medicine. It's real surgery. These are important, serious safety issues with everything that we deal with. But at the same time, it's a retail business. I mean, you have to be able to communicate with consumers in the way that they want to be communicated to. And you have to be able to appeal to consumers and understand what's going on in the mind of the consumer and deliver to them the type of experience that they're looking for. So
I would agree with that. Where did you start Athenix?
So it actually began when I acquired the assets of what was left of essentially a small chain of Medi-Spas that had somewhat, pretty much failed, I guess, other than the final couple of them. Uh-huh. So I acquired the assets of those last 2 units. One was up in Bellevue, Washington. The other one was up in Central California.
Okay.
And really sat down and looked hard and drew out a business plan that tried to, again, address that issue of how do we do a better job at delivering an outstanding product to the end consumer, both from a patient experience standpoint, but also from a results standpoint too, because there's a lot of inconsistency out in the marketplace. So we essentially drew out a business plan that said, how do we get there? How do we deliver to the consumer a great experience with consistent, reproducible results in a safe and trusted environment? And that's really where we went. I got away from the Medi-Spa aspect of the business, just because I felt there was a much bigger opportunity with delivering a full service, completely everything from non-invasive to minimally invasive to full body lifts that we perform today. This full line of aesthetic plastic surgery, as opposed to just a niche in Medi-Spa. So drew that into the plan and rebranded everything, changed the strategy of where we were going and what we were doing and how we were going to approach the marketplace, and very shortly rebuilt those 2 locations that were doing negligible amount of revenue. I think they were doing around $750,000 top line at the time, and again, negligible profits. And those 2 locations today are they're $10 million each locations.
So those are your first 2 locations.
Yep.
And you mentioned Central California. What part of Central California?
Fresno.
Fresno. Okay.
Fresno.
So Bellevue, Washington.
Yep.
Fresno. Where are the other ones?
So then we, from there, opened up Southern California. Very, very shortly thereafter, we did Pasadena and Irvine, California. Mm-hmm. And then most recently, we did Portland, Oregon. So we're now in 3 states, 5 locations in 3 states on the West Coast, with others that are coming along line here very shortly in 2 different states.
Okay. And why the name Athenix?
Yeah, it's a good question, actually. So we spent a lot of time on brand strategy when we developed this, and called upon a lot of very smart people in the industry that I've met through the years, and ultimately we mapped out a plan, including the brand name. And the brand name really came from, we must have looked at thousands of different names. And it was kind of a combination of Athena, but then we added the IX to it to give it more of a kind of a medical feel. And we tested it in the marketplace, and it tested extremely well, and that's where we landed on. I mean, we added ultimately the body sculpting, which I know some people can misinterpret and think, well, that must be liposuction, but it's really not. When we look at the way we think about body sculpting is ultimately we are accentuating the body. We're either removing from some areas, we're accentuating others, not just about liposuction, as some people think, or some surgeons may think that way. I don't know that consumers necessarily feel that way, but we added the body sculpting to it to better capture everything that we were doing.
Are you doing facelifts at your centers?
We are.
and breast surgery?
Everything.
So when you say body contouring, that throws some people off, like throws me off. I thought it meant liposuction and just body work.
Yeah, it's a great
But
question.
it's face and breast also.
Well, I mean, we do everything. We really do. We're a full-service aesthetic plastic surgery center. I mean, we do everything from completely non-invasive procedures, including injectables, minimally invasive procedures, say liposuction type procedures, but all the way up to 360 tummy tucks as well for patients that are post-massive weight loss. So
do you have your own operating rooms?
We do. We do. All of our centers are the same. We've got 2 fully accredited operating rooms in each one of our locations. So, which is important. Again, back to the patient experience and ensuring that it's all self-contained. We don't. Our patients don't have to go to the hospital. They don't have to go to an ambulatory surgery center. Just, obviously, a lot of surgeons have the same, but we don't use our centers are not farmed out to other doctors. They're for the sole and complete use of our surgeons. Okay.
And how about overnight facilities? Do you offer any of those?
We don't.
Are they in the area?
Yeah, we don't. We don't. I mean, we have relationships with overnight care centers if need be.
Yes, I was just wondering how that worked.
Yeah.
And so how many doctors do you have total for the 5 centers that you have right now?
So we run about 15 or so right now, approximately.
Yeah. And then what are your plans for expansion? You mentioned some expansion plans. What does that look like to you?
Yeah, so we were just funded about a little over 5 months ago. We received private equity funding, which was great. We have a new partner in Latticework Capital Management that has just been an outstanding partner to work with. Very accommodating. They see our vision on the growth and the opportunity in this space, and they fully support it. So our growth strategy is really threefold. First and foremost, we're going to continue to grow our existing locations. So, I mean, we have focused really over the last 10 years, we focused on growing deep rather than wide, rather than opening a bunch of centers. We've continued to grow deep and build the revenue within those centers and build the reputation and such. So that's one strategy of our growth. The other one is de novo locations. So we're opening new centers currently in different markets across the country. I mean, right now we pull, I just ran this the other day, but looking at our patient draw, we pull from patients all over the country and all over the world right now, which I think is pretty
That's cool.
Impressive. Yeah, it's actually surprised me that it was as big as it was. I mean, I knew that anecdotally I'd seen a lot of our data, and I pulled it about a year ago, but I pulled it again just recently. And the number of patients that we're seeing coming from different markets all across the U.S., I think it speaks to what we're doing and the value of what we provide to the end consumer. So de novo locations, and then the last is acquisitions. So we are actively looking to acquire practices. So I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that this space we will see consolidation in the future. Right. And I think I think it's a tremendous opportunity for surgeons to be able to capture some of the equity right now out of their practice, as well as have a bigger opportunity in the future. So I mean, we've seen this, as you know, in different other spaces, dermatology in particular.
Right.
There's been a lot of activity there, dental prior to that, and we're seeing a lot of activity now in this space.
And what markets are you looking at? Right now it sounds like you're primarily in the western United States. Are you going to take a national approach to this or a regional approach, or do you know?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. No, okay. Definitely national.
Okay.
Yeah, one of our next centers will be on the East Coast.
Okay, so. Excellent. And do you have any fellowships? Do you have what do you offer in terms of ongoing education?
Yeah, so that's great question. That's a direction that we're heading now. There's a huge amount of value in that. And I think that the organization structure that we have really facilitates that. And when I say that, we've got multiple different locations, multiple different surgeons that a younger surgeon can mentor under and learn and grow, and I just think it's a great opportunity. So that's definitely in our plans for the future.
Yeah.
Is building into that type of program, and for young surgeons, for us, it's a great opportunity for them. Doctors that come work for us, what we call an up-and-comer surgeon. We get a lot of surgeons get very attracted to come work for us because they know they can get busy, they know they can get well trained, and do a lot of cases. But we're not a low cost, high volume producer by any stretch. Our pricing, we run our price comparisons pretty regularly. We're on the upper edge of the spectrum when it comes to our pricing.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean that we're not busy. So we do a lot of cases.
And how are you marketing for the most part? I mentioned national and even international patient base. Is that primarily digital marketing, like internet and social media?
We've done it all.
You've done it all.
We really have.
I bet.
And again, you've certainly been the trailblazer there for many years.
But what are you finding is working the best for you? I'm curious.
Again, we've done it all. We've done broadcast TV, broadcast radio. Certainly social media has been great. We've been digital for a lot of years. But yeah, all of the above. All of the above. Certainly we're leaning a lot heavier digital these days. It's been very effective for us.
That's what we found also. I was just curious if that's what you found.
It is, and I think the reason why, in particularly, is that one of the strengths that we offer is results. I stand by our results, and some of the surgeons we have on board that can focus on doing great surgery because they don't have to run the practice. Okay. We have a full support team that handle all of the fundamental, foundational aspects or the functional areas of business. They're all handled by someone else.
Okay.
All the HR, all the management, all the regulatory, licensing, where a doctor doesn't have to deal with that. All the advertising, and a surgeon can just stay focused.
That sounds too good to be true, James.
A surgeon can just stay focused on being a great surgeon.
Yeah.
That's really what
the fun part.
That's what it comes down to, and for that reason, we attract a lot of surgeons as well that have been in practice for a while. And I don't mean this in a derogatory way. We call it the been to the dance group,
okay.
Which certainly is just a kind of a term that describes a surgeon that has been in practice. They've been there, they've done it. They don't necessarily enjoy that aspect of it, but they're just happy doing great surgery, and those people are a really good fit for us because they're happy to acquiesce and just, I want to do great surgery. I want to take care of patients. I want to have the autonomy to do what I know needs to be done, but not have to deal with attracting those patients, not have to deal with the HR regulations in this day and age, especially in California. It can be very challenging for a surgeon. Finance and accounting, the number of times I've heard about a doctor that had an embezzlement situation, like we did early on as well, but that kind of thing. We deal with all that and manage through that, and they don't have to focus on that.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's a huge advantage to any of us at any stage of our practice to be able to relegate some of that's not the stuff that we're not really trained to do, and isn't quite as much fun as being in the OR and doing surgery, since most surgeons love to do surgery. Yeah,
I agree.
Well, let's see. You brought a crystal ball today. I can see it bulging there. Tell me, look in your crystal ball. I think you've already taken a long bet on aesthetics, right? And I agree with you. I think the future for aesthetics is really bright. It's even in spite of COVID and even recessionary forces and so forth, aesthetics is growing by leaps and bounds, double-digit growth, as was mentioned at EIS this year in San Diego and has been mentioned by many people. So clearly you're bullish on the aesthetics market. So aside from that, what do you see in the future for either you or Athenix or aesthetics in general?
Yeah, I think big picture I see, as I had already touched on, is consolidation for sure. There's no doubt in my mind that we're seeing a lot of activity in this space, and I think it's great for the space. I think it's consolidation can really help a surgeon maximize the value of their practice. okay, and be a part of something bigger than just their own private practice. And it's not for everyone, but certainly I think for a lot of surgeons that have worked hard and they have an opportunity to transition that practice and ultimately get a nice initial payout on an acquisition, but then also maintain equity so that they can have a larger payout in the future. So I think consolidation is great for it's kind of the natural progression of a lot of markets, and I think that's my number one for sure. But I do think as well that the market will continue to expand and grow. I think that a lot of the work that the folks did years ago at Allergan, the Bob Radigans of the world did such a great job in normalizing Botox, for example, and making that much more of every part of your everyday beauty regimen. I think we'll continue to see that into the future. It certainly is. Just looking on social media, for example, people are happy to share their experiences and such. So, and I don't see that changing. I think that's only going to continue to grow, which is great because then that just builds the market for everyone. So
it's certainly great for you and great for Athenix
and
great for all of us in the beauty business.
Yeah,
and I agree with you. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
I look forward to hearing more about Athenix as you continue acquiring and building and expanding. It sounds like quite an organization.
Okay.
So thank you very much for coming up here and sharing your time with us. And thank you all for joining us for this episode of The Technology of Beauty, where I have a chance to interview the movers and shakers of the beauty business. And as you just saw, today was no exception.